What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Masks Off podcast, the only podcast on the internet where you can find the, 7 people talking today? Today is going to be a really cool episode. We've got the usual Masks Off crew. We got Alex, Arlo, Camden, Dallin, and me. Unfortunately, Leo and Marshall couldn't join us today. They will be missed, but the show must go on. But we do have two very special guests, at least special to me. They are Keelhn, my brother, and Kyle, both of whom are also on my other YouTube channel, the UpGamers. We've got a bunch of really cool topics to talk about today. We're going to cover a whole ton of subjects. But to start off, Keelhn and Kyle, go ahead and introduce yourselves. We'll start with Kyle, and then we'll get to Keelhn.
All right. Hello, everybody. I am Kyle, also maybe known as Super K-Man Rocks, if you follow my Twitch or Twitter. I am a former competitive Pokemon player that also likes to stream on Twitch. I've been playing a lot of Teamfight Tactics, so everyone hates me. I think that's all that's the only thing I'm ever really important for. So,
All right, Keelhn, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello. Alright, yeah. Yes, I'm Keelhn. Most commonly known as, Keelhn. I don't have any YouTube. I just exist. Thank you.
He's also a cutie. I'm just saying.
Well,
That's on
It's
God.
debatable. Alright, first topic.
Wait,
Is
wait.
Keelhn-
Wait.
yes, Camden?
Oh no, I was just saying. Wait a second. This man. Never mind.
All right, well, I think that's about as
Poor Kieran.
good of an introduction as I can get out of Keelhn.
Yeah.
So we're going to go ahead and move into our first topic of the week. This one's really interesting to me, and I think a lot of y'all will have some, at least interesting to me, opinions. So our first topic is the cancellation of EVO slash EVO being moved to online this year. Does anyone have any opinions that want to start us off?
Do you mind?
No, I was gonna say I think Camden probably has the strongest on.
Oh boy. Here we go then. Wait, can you hear me?
Yep.
Am I good?
Yep.
Cool. All right. So, as you know, I think, well, most people know, not really anybody in here, but now the audience will know. Me and Dallin and a couple of our friends, and I was planning to invite like Keelhn and a couple other people, but we were all going to go to EVO like as our like graduation thing. And since all this happened, it was kind of inevitable that EVO was going to end. But I personally think that they should have just done what E3 did and just cancel, because online EVO is going to be a whole different beast. I think it's going to ruin the PR system, completely mess up like Smash and any other game, in particular Street Fighter and Smash. Those two games are going to be messed up, and I think that the wrong way to go with this. I think that it would have been okay if EVO just said like we're going to miss this year, and EVO hasn't missed an evolution since its beginning, I think. So now that it's like ended, and now they're saying, hey, we're going to have online instead. It's really gonna mess with like the players who are already suffering in the PR system right now, like Samsora, MK Leo, that's just Smash in general. That's one side of EVO. But mostly like looking at the Smash aspect, the PR system is gonna be really, really bad. And that's what I'll leave it at that for now. I'll let people talk. But I have more to say about it, but I'll let people talk now.
So I agree on a lot of those points. I do think like, because a lot of people consider EVO one of those places where like you see really who is the best of the best, and online isn't conducive to that. You'll see a lot of people who are amazing players in their own rights just do terrible online because either they don't have a great internet connection or they just don't play online a lot, and so they're not used to the delay. And they have to be very careful about how they go about it, because if they don't set it up the right way, there's a lot of room for disaster in setting this event online. But also, Camden, we gotta camp out on duos online.
Oh, dude, on God, me and you. Okay, I know
That
I was just
mess
trash talking
Lucas.
online, dude.
Whoa.
I know I was trash talking online, but we're about to be the toxic duo, dude. Expect top 8, less than Lucas, online only.
Anyway, whoever wants to talk next can.
God, I fucking hate you both. Anyway, so
You
if
too,
I
man.
love you, but anyway, if I may have my at least present my pipe dream reality, and I don't know what PR is, I don't know like the professional Smash scene that well, but I have been hearing that our famed top Smash players have been being beaten by these randos online because of all the online tournaments going on, and I'd like to present the very possible reality that we're going to see an EVO bring a whole bunch of no names into the spotlight.
Exactly right.
Which-
Exactly right.
I'm gonna get burned for saying this. I don't exactly have a problem with, because I do think there is a slight little bit of like problem with like competitive gaming in general being a little bit hard to get into. And then now that we'll have all these quote, like somewhat inspirational stories, but oh man, rando guy beat fucking Hbox. I don't know. Will Evo go run smoothly? Absolutely not. This is gonna be a shit show. But I do think there is, if we're gonna look at the slight bright spot in it, we're gonna see a lot of like no-name people who have been really good at online, because the online meta is its own thing. Like we can discourage it all at once for not being competitive. It kind of has some merit. It's I think how most people play multiplayer games, especially Smash. And honestly, it's the only way to train without being, if you're not able to go to tournaments. So, but we're gonna start seeing people run through EVO that we've never seen. This is gonna be the most like we don't know who to root for EVO ever, and I'm a little bit excited for it.
So I think that's a lot of interesting opinions. I will say, at least my understanding of the current situation is that the PGRU won't be affected by any online tournaments. So people like Samsora or Leo who aren't performing as well in the online sphere, their PGRU won't be affected by this. But I will say, I think it's actually... I have mixed feelings about it. I think it's cool for EVO to be more inclusive for this, and I think in the future it would be cool to see an online EVO in supplement to the regular EVO. I don't think EVO should like replace itself with online, because I just don't think we will ever live in a world, or at least not for a long time, where playing online is going to have the same environment as playing in person. But I think there's a lot of interesting things going on around EVO because of this. I mean, Zero is obviously making his second quote-unquote tournament appearance since the end of Smash 4. I think that's kind of interesting to see. And obviously, like, some of these people who are making these huge runs in these online tournaments aren't people that we normally see, but obviously we are still seeing a lot of top players perform well. MK Leo, I think, placed third in the quarantine series. Yeah, you do have people like Cola and Spargo making these bigger runs, but they were already players that were getting recognition for how talented they were. They just also had the advantage of playing better online. But I think EVO Online has the potential to be cool. I think it has the potential to be something really good. I also see where it could be destructive in the long run, especially if EVO decides to move to an online format, because at the end of the day, that's going to save and end up probably saving them money, especially if they find a way to monetize, effectively the online tournaments.
Dallin?
Yeah, I was wait for me, Cam. I was getting ready to speak. I feel like I feel like this Evo is most probably gonna be canceled. It's just they're trying to figure out a way to like please the fans, but I'm pretty sure that they realize that a lot of players are going to be complaining about online stuff, and that they're not gonna have there's no way that they're gonna come back from this backlash. So I feel like eventually they're just probably just gonna cancel it and call it safe. It's probably the best thing you possibly could do. So That's just my opinion.
Well, they have canceled the in-person tournament for 2020 and moved to online. Or do you mean permanently?
I think online is going to be canceled as well. Like in person was already canceled. Everybody knows that there's going to be a lot of lag because you're going to have people from all over the world trying to play. That's a lot of lag and a lot of damage. And I feel like they should just probably cancel on.
I will say, just kind of as a quick counterpoint to that, while there have been complaints about like lag, that hasn't been the major complaint about like the online tournaments, like especially like the quarantine series, which has kind of been the biggest online tournament so far. The biggest complaint is obviously a lot of characters do better with just the inherent latency to online, but I personally don't see that being as big of a problem because EVO will have requirements for how to get into the tournament and how to do that sort of stuff, just like quarantine did. And there will be, I do foresee there being drama with that, but I think there is a way for EVO to handle that correctly.
They just better do it in the right way. Like,
I can agree.
Yeah,
that,
it's just like, yeah, you can, if you know how to do online correctly, like if you have like an Ethernet cable, you're fine. If you have Wi-Fi, trying to upgrade it. But like there's a lot of players out there that really want to participate in EVO that do not have an Ethernet cable at all.
If I can,
all right. Go ahead.
If I can just ask a 5-second question. I don't know how much information has been released on it. Do we know if there are like requirements to like enter that you have to have an Ethernet cable adapter, or you need to like?
I am pretty sure that. I'm 99% sure they're gonna make you do that. I don't think they've released the rules yet. Caleb, do you know? Have they?
As of right now, they have not released a rule set, but I almost certainly predict them following quarantine series in how they decide to set up their rules.
Okay, that makes sense.
And I will say quarantine series did a really good job with their rules, along with lag connection. Like they do lag tests, so like if you have to test like delay and stuff, it's interesting. But EVO's definitely, since it's a more like funded and watched event, they're gonna make sure it's professional. Do you mind if I go into my next point real quick?
Yeah, you were next, okay. I think.
So as somebody like I guess I can tell I have the right to this. I'm a huge like avid. I watch Smash, like competitive Smash, all the time. And I watched, and I was really big into Unicler when Unicler came into EVO. I was like the most excited for that game when it took over. I think it was Melee spot. Sadly, like I was sad to see Melee go, but then I was also excited for Unicler. But there's just a feeling of like seeing EVO in person that won't be there this year. I hate to make this sound. I'm trying to not sound toxic, but if you follow me on Twitter, you'll see that I'm like I get really serious about certain games and matches I see. But I watched the end of the quarantine series recently, and I'm really hoping that EVO does not become what the quarantine series ended up becoming, because I'm not trying to say the Sonics guy is actually a really nice guy in person, but like as people say, nice guy, mean character. And I hate to bring it up, but Sonic is going to be so prevalent in EVO, and it's going to be scary because, like, sadly, you have to take into account the players that you're playing against, their connection. It's going to be very interesting to see like the more character variety. And as you said, Alex, there are going to be more like no-name people who are going to make their like name in EVO Online, which is sad because if you follow some people on Twitter, I won't say who because, I'm not trying to cause anything, but a lot of them are saying like, hey, whoever wins EVO Online, we got to flame them because they don't actually deserve their win, which I think is kind of counterintuitive to help people who are trying to join the Smash or join the competitive Smash community or join like to try to become popular or make money off of Smash as their career, which I think is going to be really hard for whoever wins this EVO, because it'll be bittersweet. You're either going to win EVO and then, get that victory and like, yes, I finally won EVO. This is huge. But then you'll have to look at like, I'm going to be hated by everybody, if that makes any sense. That's kind of my thought process.
Yeah, I do agree with you on that.
Yeah, I would agree as well. I think there's a couple things as well that we can kind of look to in the past to kind of maybe see how this has gone even more further back than something like the quarantine tournament the past few weeks. I think one of the best storylines, at least for me this year, that has come out of the FGC, and I know not everybody here is probably going to have watched or played Mortal Kombat 11, but obviously Mortal Kombat 11 was not going to be at EVO this year. And so they held their big final tournament, their big final combat tournament earlier this year, I believe in March. And one of the coolest storylines to have come out of that was a player by the name of Ninja Killa, who actually just came out into the tournament and beat Sonic Fox multiple times in bracket before finally losing to him in finals. And kind of creating that intrigue of, oh, wow, this is a guy that we really have never seen before in this zone, kind of build upon that. And while I think that could be true for something like Smash, I think that's more so something that I'm looking forward to in maybe some of the other games at EVO as well. I know most of you guys here are primarily Smash Brothers players, at least when it comes to fighting games. But there are a lot of games I think at EVO this year that aren't going to have the same kind of problems that something like Smash may have in terms of an online setting. Like I think a game maybe like Soul Calibur isn't going to be nearly as much of a problem to translate to maybe a more online setting. And I think that's maybe where we're going to come to start to figure out, is this kind of a sustainable thing in the future? It may not be for some games, but we could be looking back on this in like a year, and you could have certain games, maybe some fighters that are a little bit more responsive online, and that don't have necessarily the same kind of cheese tactics that Smash may have online.
Definitely.
You may have some of those games being considered to be going permanently online, even if EVO like was to, I think that could take it into account rather than just being, some games might actually fare better, as I guess the point I was trying to make there.
Definitely.
Outside of Smash Brothers, I think it's an interesting discussion to have, but that was kind of my point there.
So yeah, especially with Soul Calibur, like you said, I played a lot of ranked Soul Calibur online, and that's an example of a game where online does work very well. It is probably the optimal environment for that game because it doesn't miss out on anything. And run into the issue of, with a game like Smash, being that online where the platform that it's on, Nintendo Online is just not a great platform, not well developed still. Actions are just significantly worse than you see on platforms like Sony or Xbox or PC. And so you run into the issue of online Smash is inherently unfair. And so it'll be great to see people who might not get recognition otherwise get recognition in an online tournament, but they'll run into the issue of afterwards they'll really have to prove that they are genuinely a good player and not just someone who knows how to gimmick the online.
I 100%
Because
agree.
it's such a different environment playing online. And so I can't remember who it was that said it, but they said something about going to tournaments kind of not being like a level field. Because I guess because of the environment. But that will be an actual in-person tournament is always going to be the most level field someone has to make their name. Because if they won there, they would immediately get the recognition rather than getting the recognition that they might want and then having to fight to prove that it's well deserved. And so that's my issue with online.
Yeah.
My push to talk
Alex,
was
you
not.
up?
Yeah, sorry, my push to talk wasn't
Okay.
pressed. But yeah, I agree with that to an extent, but I will say that fighting games as they are now, it's extremely difficult to get into them. I think Smash is arguably the easiest one gameplay wise, but the biggest thing is just as much as fair as locals are, it's difficult for some people to get to locals and to get to these kind of tournaments where we're all in one place. I mean, quarantine aside, like outside of it, if you don't have the time or I'd say the money to a certain extent, it's very difficult to get in the grind time and the practice. I would like to see a world where we try to innovate online to be either just as good or make some sort of online series. I like the idea of like an online Evo where we can get it where Nintendo gets their shit together and we can actually have it where everyone at least has some sort of way to kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say have to compete competitively, but at least a good way to practice. Because like, especially with some like fighting games that aren't even in Evo, like Project M, there are no Project M tournaments. You can't local Project M. Blaze Blue, that's beyond tournaments at this point. They had like one Evo, and now we're gone. Melee, I mean, there's a lot of games that are just, I mean, Melee, I guess, is a bad example, but like, there's a lot of fighting games that people want to play competitively that just, it's very difficult to find tournaments for. And online really is your only option. But I if this is done right and the community doesn't butcher it, which I fear it will, I would like to see a kind of, I like the EVO Online kind of thing where we can do obviously some connection tests on the player side, but a kind of easier to entry tournament to kind of help fighting games kind of almost, I don't want to say break the, I don't want to say, what's the stereotype isn't the word I'm looking for, but the stereotype of like being super hard and super difficult to get into, super hard to play, and if you're not frame perfect on it, stigma, thank you. Stigma just being like, if you're not the best gamer in the world, then you might as well like fucking leave. I don't know, but that's just me being, you know, filthy casual I am. Also, as a Sonic player, you guys are telling me I should enter EVO, right? Like I should.
Yeah, man, do it.
Yes.
All right, please, we're going in.
Don't worry,
There are enough
I'll
Sonic
watch
mains
you
to defend.
kill it in. I'll watch you kill it in Loser.
Yeah, dude,
I've been
your
waiting
Sonic
for this
was
moment
sick.
since Brawl.
Respectable. I mean, I play Ness online. I get a bunch of shit.
I PK fire, bitch.
It's really interesting to hear y'all talk about this because I feel like one of the things that y'all haven't talked about is just the difference in environment and how that kind of plays into competing. Just from my experience, like having obviously played in local tournaments, but also having hosted my own Wi-Fi tournament, it's two completely different like feelings when you're playing, because when you're sitting next to the person that you're competing against, it's a lot easier to read them and like understand kind of what they're going to do, but you don't have that option in an online tournament. You don't even see who you're playing, so there is a kind of a difference in like how you're going to approach things, how your understanding of your opponent. But also for a lot of these, you know, bigger players, some of them probably feed off of the audience a bit, especially like, you know, ones who have, you know, these great reputations and followings like Leo. But it might also help some players who kind of have had problems with audiences like Hungrybox and Meister. So I think that's a really interesting element kind of the play, and seeing how that changes in the future, because some players might thrive in the online only environment because of that, and some players might really struggle in the online environment because of that. I think that's a really kind of a interesting element to kind of this whole situation going forward. And the other side of it is Wi-Fi tournaments aren't new for a lot of these games. I mean, a lot of these games have had Wi-Fi tournaments for a long time. It's just right now they're the only thing that's going on, so they have made a much bigger impact. But I definitely think it's kind of an interesting thing to look at.
Definitely. Moving away from Smash for a second, because I've already kind of voiced my piece on that. I'm actually very excited because I think there's a lot of potential in this. If I'm not, I don't want to say this and be incorrect, but what was that new game that came out on PS4? Blue Fantasy something. What was
Grand
it?
Blue
Yeah,
Fantasy.
yeah,
Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, yeah.
yeah. That got into EVO, correct?
It did, yeah. I just checked.
It did.
Okay, I am
super excited.
so excited to watch that game. I'm super excited. to see Uniclur as well, because those two games look like they have amazing netcode. And like I don't think there's going to be that much of a prevalent issue to like play online with your opponent because you both are going to be playing consoles, right? So like again, I've been watching a crap ton of versus. So, dude, I'm so excited for those. But like as a Uniclur player, I'm first a Uniclur player before I was playing Smash Brothers. So I'm really excited to see how the competitive, because last year's Evo for Uniclur was sick, and I loved watching all the games. But like to see it online and like see like the new players that are come into this game, I'm really excited for that. So though Smash may be a little underwhelming, I'm really excited to see 2 more games. So I kind of get my fill on that.
Well, cool. I think we've kind of covered that as much as we possibly can. If anyone who's watching has an opinion that they'd like us to kind of cover, feel free to go ahead and comment, and we'll circle back around to it later. But just kind of moving forward in the news of the gaming world this week, there was a ton of news that came out in the past couple of days. I think it actually was yesterday or the day before yesterday. A bunch of leaks came out about The Last of Us Part 2, and we're going to try and talk about it without spoiling anything. So everyone who talks about it, please try your hardest to avoid talking about what was actually in those leaks. But I do want to kind of discuss kind of leak culture and kind of how that is affecting the gaming markets, because as big as these Last of Us 2 leaks are, it's not the only case of video game content leaking or even moving past video games to television and movies. So I kind of want to hear y'all's opinions on that.
Oh boy, let me get my stomps in. All right, bet. None of y'all know this, but I'm a huge Last of Us fan. I loved the first game. I played all the DLCs. The fact that I've waited since June 14th, 2013 for a part 2 to this game was immense. How dare they have the audacity to freaking leak? I haven't seen anything from it. All I know is that they leaked, and I avoided the internet for like as long as they were there. How dare they leak everything that is important to that game? Like literally, people have been working their butts off for this, bro. Oh my goodness, I'm so mad.
Right, a well-articulated opinion. Thank you very much.
Very much so. A lot of energy.
Yeah, no, actually, I guess I kind of have stuff to add to that, because the story behind the leaks, I think, is so incredibly interesting for this one specifically. Mostly because if the rumors are to be believed, obviously there's no way to confirm or deny any of this, but everything was leaked by a former Naughty Dog employee and one of the main designers of the cutscenes. Yeah.
If I can cut in, I saw a news story today. They think instead of it being an angry employee, it was a hacker, and that they found some.
Okay, all right. So, because as far as we knew,
I can't do the validity of that, and
so, let me
real
quick.
I just think it's an interesting kind of dynamic. If it was whether or not it's a hacker or not, right? This is something that we're seeing so much more often in games now than I think we were before. I mean, I remember there was a massive leak for Pokemon Sword and Shield right at the end of last year, right before the game came out. That kind of really upset a lot of, it upset Nintendo a ton. Nintendo has heavily cracked down on things like that. I know specifically. Right. And the thing about leak culture, I'll say, is it's almost as if it's like highlighted in society right now. I think we're in a really bad part of I guess the way to say this would be, I think leakers and hackers get way too much press and way too much validity for the things that they do. And I understand why, because people are interested in what happens in these games. But I guess one of the big points that I wanted to bring up is I think that things like this have been like rising exponentially in the past couple of years. And I'm not sure if that has to do more with internet culture or if that has more to do with the current state of the gaming industry. Because I know at least what the rumor was that it was a quote unquote former Naughty Dog employee, someone who had worked on the cutscenes of the games, someone who had known, what was going on here. And that was something that I was interested in talking about, just because it raises the question of, is there more that we need to look into when it comes to, disgruntled employees and leaks? Like, how do we stop something like this from ever happening again in the future? Because really, if that really is the situation, I don't really see a way that we can prevent that from happening again, if that makes sense.
Kill him with fire. That's how you deal with it.
Oh boy.
Exactly right.
Yeah, leak culture is interesting. Well, first, to add to the story, excuse me, I didn't have time to say this in chat before, but also the Wii's source code got leaked, I think, like 2 days ago. So Nintendo's whole process and the Wii software has been leaked, which, is pretty good or bad depending on how you look at it. But when it comes to Last of Us Part 2, I mean, we could go on for days about the whole Naughty Dog employee storyline and how that goes. My question is where did that story start? And then where do we believe Sony when they say it was a hacker? Because if it was a bad employee, this goes back to a few episodes ago when I was giving my, almost virtue signaling speeches about how we need to figure out ways to get better practices in game creation. Because Naughty Dog had a whole bunch of crunch in Last of Us, and it was spiraling down. And whether or not it's going to work out, we obviously haven't seen yet. But it was there. They were getting accused of some bad things. Leak happened, and then conveniently, it's an ex-employee saying everything was horrible, so I left. But now we're seeing as a hacker, which it kind of shoots that narrative in the foot. But then again, correct me if I'm wrong, Sony's the one. I have chips in my throat. Fuck. But if it's a hacker, if Sony's saying it and they just don't want Naughty Dog to look bad, it's a big. The source of these leaks is just weird. And leak culture, I think, the Smash community is arguably the worst perpetrator of it. Ever. It has give or take. I mean, if I remember, couldn't Smash Ultimate release like 2 weeks early? Someone leaked like the whole ROM and everything, and that was spreading around. Like it's crazy. There needs to be a way to kind of rein it in to a certain extent. Because I love a good leak like the next guy, but it's ruining people's jobs. It's gonna start if it keeps going the way it's going. I predict that like we're not even gonna be able to have like big, almost E3-esque announcements, because what's the point if someone leaks the whole thing?
I completely agree. I'm gonna say, piggybacking off what you said, I am very, very frustrated with the thought of leaking in general, because here's the thing. As a consumer, who usually like buys video games and like plays them, and I want to see it blindly, like I've still not seen anything about Royal. I'm trying to keep myself away from that. And I was really, really careful about not seeing anything about Last of Us 2 because I'm a big fan as well. But leak culture in general is just, I don't see the appeal personally. I understand some people like seeing like what's like see what you get before you buy it, if that makes any sense. But like when you leak like 99% of the game for everyone to see, it's stupid. And same thing with like Smash and stuff. As somebody, I like knowing what a character is, or like speculating what a character is before I like Smash, for example. I hate to use Smash as a constant example, but that's just what I can think of. But like I don't want to know who the next character is immediately. I'd rather be surprised, or I'd rather be disappointed. I can't have people work really, really hard on announcements and things like cutscenes and games and stuff, so that people can get a first glance experience, not so that you get it spoiled first and then you're buying the game all over again, if that makes any sense. Because I'm not going to buy Last of Us 2 if I've already seen what the game looks like, because then I'm not going to get that feeling of that I did with Last of Us 1. And I think that the fact that some people think that leaking is okay, and I totally get that, like if you're doing it for yourself, if you want to go and leak things, I guess power to you. Just don't spoil other people, because other people care about the games and stuff. But like I don't really see what the appeal is. Why would you do that to a bunch of fans and stuff? I mean, share it with people who ask, That's my tiny little rant on that, but I just don't think leaking is a necessary factor, or that it should happen for a game that's taken so long.
Yeah, So my thoughts on the leak is that so I've read a bunch of articles about it and how um there are numerous anonymous people inside the company that have talked to sources about it, and all kind of have the same general consensus of they don't know who it was, but they wouldn't have been surprised if it was someone inside of the company because of conditions that they're working in, like it or like the culture around the office. I think the biggest issue there is that people, my understanding is that the people who are doing the hardest parts and like have been with Naughty Dog this entire time working on these games, their opinions on the games are getting stomped out by people who want to force feed presentation to the game rather than letting the original story that was intended play out. And so it's not just a case of there being issues around the office. It's a case of people having their ambition for something that they've loved creating for years stomped out by someone. And so while I don't agree with leaking things, maybe the retribution is deserved. Because you can't just people and at the same time destroy the thing that they're working on, even if they loved it originally.
I think that's right.
I think that's the biggest issue.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point. The one thing I will say about all of this, obviously, a lot of this is speculation and coming from anonymous sources that we cannot, like obviously we can't verify, and numerous news sources are saying anonymous source this, anonymous source that. But as we've seen before, anonymous sources aren't always reliable. There have been a few cases in the past couple of years where an anonymous source made these claims or said that these certain things were true, and come to find out they weren't actually affiliated with the company. Another point that I think is worth mentioning, this is an official statement from Sony, is that they have identified who is responsible, and they were not an employee of Naughty Dog or Sony Entertainment, nor were they a former employee or a contractor. That's the official statement coming from Sony. Obviously, we kind of have to take Sony at their word. And obviously, Naughty Dog hasn't come out saying that, hey, this is, Sony was wrong. This is actually the case. But I do think Keelhn made a really great point about the dichotomy between kind of creative ambition and the drive to include representation. And obviously, both of those things are incredibly important. And both are good things. It's finding the balance between doing those at the same time. And I think it's hard. It's hard to come down on any side when obviously we will never know the full story. And there are a lot of interesting elements. Connor or Tiny Giant in the comments made a really good point. There's been a bit of news on rumors that Naughty Dog forced employees to watch disturbing videos as inspiration for The Last of Us. And that's kind of something that we've seen become more and more prevalent in the entertainment industry, is this mentality of you have to dive super deep into something in order to kind of replicate it and explain it, and putting employees under a lot of stress, both emotionally in terms of stuff like that, but also crunch. So there's a lot of, a lot of this ties back into what we talked a couple episodes about, and I think it's just indicative of how kind of screwed up a lot of elements of the game industry are.
I note something really quick just because of what you said, Caleb.
Mhm.
So part of my point earlier that I don't think I really got across because I wasn't like super thinking about it, is that from what if the anonymous sources are to be believed, it's not necessary. It doesn't really matter who leaked it, whether it was an outside person or an inside person. Not the part that's important. The fact that there would be people inside of the company that supported the idea, even if it wasn't them who had a hand in it. That they believed that it very easily could have been someone inside of the company speaks miles more than just having someone inside the company do it.
Okay, yeah, I see what you're saying. Well, let's
Yeah.
get a few more opinions on this.
I'm just
All you guys.
So I spent a whole episode derailing the conversation about ethics in game, and this was kind of exactly what I was talking about. Is this kind of culture of just push the developers way too hard? My question is, do we buy the? Because the developers put their heart and soul into it. Like, we know that, forced to or not, they put countless hours, countless amounts of time, and they deserve to be rewarded for the effort they put into this, no matter how shit this product will come out, because they put everything into it. But if we buy the game and support the game, it also supports the higher ups that forced them to do so much, to do more than they might even be comfortable with. So is it worth supporting the developers while also supporting the higher ups when, if they get the money that they want for the game, won't they? Why wouldn't they do this again if they know it's profitable?
Remind me to piggyback off of what you say when I go on, because I have something to say.
Absolutely.
Or am I up?
You are up. I think you were next.
Okay, I didn't know if that was a question that you wanted us to ask. Speaking of that,
Yes.
just so I get a full I'm listening fully. Again, I stayed completely away from anything that had to do with these leaks. So I'm not going to use the word mistreating, but Naughty Dog, like, they weren't really fully respecting their employees. Is that what I'm hearing?
If the rumors are to be believed,
Are
then
true?
yes.
Yes. Okay, so I guess I'm going to put my 2 cents in. And usually that's not good, but I'm going to do it anyway for the sake of entertainment. I think that and I will take back completely what I just said previously if these rumors are true, because I think that by no means should you overwork anybody. It doesn't matter how passionate you are about a project or how hard you work on it. You should never ever force somebody to work on something more than they should, or that's possible. And though I love what do you call it? I love The Last of Us. I don't think I could support a company that did that to their employees. Along with that, I think that whoever leaked all this stuff, again, this is why I'm taking back everything I just previously said. Power to you, because I think that is a good way to prove your point. It may have ruined some people's view on the game and such, but by no means should you have had to put up with that and deal with nothing afterwards. I think that leaking some of the stuff is actually a really good way to kind of voice your frustrations. But that's all I really say. I take back everything I said. I kind of listened to the conversation and I understand what everybody was saying. But if this is all true about the employees, my condolences go out to them, because that's awful. And again, as a consumer who is planning to buy the game, I really hope none of this is true.
All right. But like, The Last of Us is more of more mature than it was for Uncharted, the Nathan Drake series. It is more. It is an apocalyptic game. You cannot, if you're gonna make an apocalyptic game, you need to look into all the scenarios. I feel like, yes, what some of the things they did, that Naughty Dog, if the rumors are to be believed, like what Naughty Dog has done to their employees, yes, that is a bad thing. But also, if you're gonna make a game about zombies like literally eating you or eating people, and like their heads being opened from from the virus that's there, of course you're gonna have to like look into some video. Like you're gonna have to like look into like references or something like that. You just can't you can't just make it up on the spot and have like a story be like that, and you can't have animation be like that. So that's just my hat's in the ring.
Very epic.
I think it's a really complicated topic, and I think there's a lot of really interesting viewpoints, and I think it's something we could discuss for 20 episodes and still never come down on any decision, because once again, there are so many elements to this that we don't know and we can't verify. But I definitely think it's something to keep an eye on for the future, because if these things are true, there's going to be serious repercussions, hopefully, for Sony and Naughty Dog and the games industry as a whole. But real quick, before we move on, we got a really interesting comment from Shatter. He says, "Come," and I couldn't agree more, Shatter.
I couldn't agree.
I agree.
Wow.
I agree.
I have
Shout out
yet to hear
to
something
Shatter
that I've
for
agreed with
saying
so
wow.
much.
How could you say
Lovely.
something so controversial yet
so bold?
I know, right?
That's
Dude,
the bravest man. That's
this
the bravest person in the
This
world.
is like
this man? Why isn't he on the podcast right now? Why isn't he talking?
Next week he's up.
He's actually
Guest star
he's
for
actually
next week.
downstairs in my house. He's downstairs in my house. Not even. I will yell at him
Boy.
after this that he said come.
Well, all right. I think that's all we can say about Shatter. Shatter, thank you so much for your comment. And moving on to our next topic. E3 has.
Can we replace Camden with Shatter?
Fuck you. Hold on. Wait a second.
I will take it under consideration. We will weigh the pros and cons.
He can video edit. I don't do anything but talk on this podcast.
That's all you're good for.
All right. Well,
Darren,
so
joking, I love you, I love you, I
What
love
else you do, buddy?
I sleep.
I'm just kidding. We love each other here. We're all friendly.
I hate everyone.
Well, speaking to our earlier topic of cancellations, another big thing was canceled this week, very preemptively, in my opinion. But E3 was canceled, and so I think this would be a fun opportunity to talk about kind of what we were expecting to be talked about there, and also kind of what our prediction for E3 as a whole is. It's something that's kind of been on the downward trend, in my opinion, for a while now, and there are definitely people who are already talking about this potentially being the final nail in the coffin for E3, but I do want to see y'all's opinion on this.
So, before I get into my actual comments, first off, wasn't E3 already canceled?
So E3 2019 had already been canceled, but E3 2020 is canceled for the rest for June of 2020.
Oh, I thought that came out like a few months ago.
It did. The announcement did.
The announcement did, but we had just started talking about it.
Oh,
But obviously,
okay.
we're also getting much closer to it, and I kind of wanted to see what y'all's opinion was for it.
Okay, I thought like they announced like the entire E3 conference was like canceled indefinitely forever, no more E3, and I was like, I'm crying. But I obviously have. Not obviously, but I have really big nostalgic memories with E3. I invite Camden and a bunch of my other friends and Arlo and a bunch of other people over to my house every E3, and that's kind of our big shindig. And they spend the night and we watch the Nintendo press conference. And so seeing E3 go, especially as it's kind of lessening in popularity, I don't know. It's sad. I'm arguably more disappointed about E3 leaving or E3 being canceled than my own graduation, which I think says a lot about me.
Alex, I'm right with you. Don't worry about it.
Very good. I'm not the only fucking no life brainlet in here.
That's all of us.
Not giving a shit about normal social things, but anyway, prediction wise, I think Nintendo almost confirmed the fact we were going to see the ARMS character at E3. I don't think that is anything really controversial for me to say. Other than that, I don't really know just a lot of sadness, immense sadness.
Yeah, I think sadness is a really good way to describe E3 in the last like 2 years, I would say. I have maybe a relatively bold prediction. I don't think it's that out there, but it's not the best news. I think we've probably had the last E3 of all time, or at least in its current iteration. Just, I think everything surrounding the cancellation of 2020 and everything about 2019 that happened with the conference, I don't think E3 2020 would be happening with or without a pandemic this year. I think that essentially everything going on in the world right now is irrelevant to what the fundamental problems that E3 has been having, at least in terms of not only ratings, at least in the past couple of years, but whatever is going on with that infrastructure that has just seemed to completely implode in the past 3 years or so. I don't see really a future in which the conference, if everything, and we know most of it to be true, but if everything that we have heard about what is going on behind the scenes with E3 is relatively true, I don't really see a way in which a conference like that can continue to profit and can continue to provide as much as they're providing. I think the bigger question that I would ask at this point would be, a lot of companies have essentially centered their announcement timing and centered their release schedules around this conference and around the timing that this conference brings. Like in the summer, a lot of companies, especially the major ones, Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, will announce their big announcements there. But even more so, independent creators kind of really get screwed over without having a major conference here to announce their platforms. They don't have a Nintendo Direct or a Sony YouTube channel that they can post a video to that will still be seen by millions of viewers and still get their game ideas out there. And so my biggest question, I guess, going forward with something like this would be, even if, let's say E3 is done, let's say this year, because of the cancellation, let's say this was the nail in the coffin, this is done for E3, is that going to affect how not only large companies, but independent companies go about advertising their games and
100%.
maybe go down and slow down this like crazy independent game movement that we've been seeing in the last decade?
If I can say like one thing,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, feel free.
Saying there isn't a Nintendo Direct for indie games is kind of wrong. There is the Nindies Directs that happen like every. So I mean,
and you're absolutely correct. There are absolutely platforms out there to get them out there. I'm just saying you're looking at a significantly less public way of being able to advertise
100%.
than something like E3.
And you're absolutely right that it is gonna hit indie games. I'm just being an asshole mainly. Also, they did announce Summer Games Fest, so we are
excellent.
Another thing for people. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Speaking. Kyle, are you done? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm all good. I'm all good.
Okay, cool. I didn't know if there's an add-on. So actually, what I was gonna say was mostly what Kyle kind of finished it off for me. I really have my condolences out for a lot of the indie games, because most big titles can be like, "Hey, yo, we're running like a direct type thing," or "Here's like a random announcement that we can throw out," because people will watch it. But like indie titles, it's gonna be like really hard to get their games out there. My predictions for E3, I was expecting to see mainly like big, like not big titles. I was expecting to see more indie titles this year at E3. Because there's been a lot of I looked at chat. Fuck you, whoever put that there. There's been like a lot of indie titles and a lot of new indie titles that have come out, and they're so good. Like Hollow Knight came out a while back, and that was like an indie title that was amazing. So I was expecting to see something like that come out during this Evo, but now it's going to be so hard for smaller companies to like get their titles out there. But like big things like Nintendo coming out with like their next like DLC character, people were already going to watch that without E3. And again, saying that this is sadly going to be the last E3 is actually a really probable outcome. And though I love going and like hang out with my friends and watching E3 and all that stuff, it's gonna be sad to not have that. Because sadly, the Game Awards last year, was really bad. Yeah, I don't even know what the hell I was watching. I'm sorry. Anyway, wrong
Lord.
topic. Conventions. Okay, Game Awards is gonna happen anyway, so I'm hoping that they do at E3. I hope they take a page out of E3's book. Is what I'm hoping they do. Oh yeah, and my condolences to everybody. I'm sorry.
Yeah, thank you. I was waiting for the condolences.
Right. My condolences for.
So I think Kyle's absolutely right that E3 probably will not stick around for much longer. I think what instead will happen is that a lot of what would show up at E3 will be dispersed into other things, and then like the bigger game companies will do similar to what EA did, where they just hold their own like not really connected to E3 conference, and so they'll have, rather than having one big conference like E3, you'll start seeing clusters of individual companies doing their own conferences, and that allows them the flexibility of not like it having to give that announcement like, oh, we're not going to be at E3 this year. But it also gives other companies that might not get as much showing at E3 room to be like, okay, we're have our own big conference and we're going to show you what we're all working on. And you might see something, a replacement where you'll see a conference where it's a bunch of indie developers pulled together. And so they'll have their own little stage to show what they've been working on. And so you might not have this big stage anymore, but you've got more divisiveness to people being able to go and look at specifically what they want rather than waiting around for E3 to show them what they might want to see.
I agree on that end.
Yeah, and I definitely like kind of like tying that all together. Like, I think what we'll end up seeing is that a lot of the because E3 was always kind of an independent-ish organization from companies like Sony and Nintendo and Microsoft and you know, Sega and all those companies back before then. But I worry without, you know, E3 and potentially the other games conferences that might fall away. I think there was another game conference that was canceled a few months ago, that a lot of things are going to become more controlled by the distributors, which in this instance would be Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo. And I do have fears for how that will affect the indie games market. I think it's more serious for indie games that were designed for consoles. I think it's less serious for PC indie games. But, I mean, you know, a game like Shovel Knight succeeded because of its console presence. And I think if the, you know, companies like Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo have more control over who's distributing indies and who's putting the press for indies out there, I do have concerns about that going forward. But at the same time, I think this is the most opportune time because there are so many internet platforms out there for game developers to market their games. And I think if something like E3 goes away, developers will start putting more stock into those, and those will grow, and those will become the outlets from which we get information like that. So I definitely think I think it has the potential to be great, but I'm very concerned about where it is now, and where we'll go moving forward.
Yeah, I definitely can agree with most of those concerns. And a lot of those concerns for me actually come from what has essentially been happening over the past, I don't know, 4 years, at least in the major games industry. We've talked a lot about like independent companies getting their name out there. What we've seen a lot of independent companies, mostly with Microsoft, do is cooperate essentially with a larger company to have that platform to be able to get their name out. Microsoft has been pretty notorious in buying up every indie game studio they possibly could within the past 4 years. And I'm worried that something like that could essentially only get worse from a situation like this, where you'll see companies that struggle to get their name out. And so they have to go to the Microsofts, the Sonys, the Nintendos to even say, hey, will you, you can essentially take over this project, but we do need you to get that name out there. That would be a pretty large concern of mine. I know that there are a lot of indie games that I only found out because of Microsoft's press conferences. I wrote this in chat probably a little while ago, but there was a game that came out, I believe, 3 years ago called Unraveled. And I'm sure a lot of people remember it because the press conference that had it was so incredible, right? The press conference sold me on that game rather than the gameplay, purely just because of the heart and the desire that you got to see on the developer's face, right? Things like that. A lot of that's now gone. And I think maybe even just looking at it from a big company perspective, I think this is essentially a good thing for companies like Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo. Because, I mean, let's be honest, E3, especially I can speak for Nintendo, especially because that's, the company that I think I follow the most. But Nintendo hasn't cared about E3 in 3 or 4 years. They didn't participate in E3 2018 at all. They held their own Nintendo Direct about 2 weeks after. And so I think this is essentially a good thing for them because it is eliminating small competition. But we've kind of hit this point to death, at least for me. Like, I don't feel like I have anything more to add, but I did want to throw out there, since I don't want to just talk about E3's effect, maybe, on the gaming situation as a whole, the gaming industry, but more so what we can expect from this year rather than, in the future. I think I'm not really sure whether to expect major announcements within the next 2 months. Because when you see situations like this normally, if we were to have had an E3 this year, and let's say E3 still, all the big companies are still participating, I guarantee you we see release dates for the PS5 and the Xbox. I guarantee you we see price points. We get major info on, either new games or games in development. And I don't know if that kind of information is necessarily going to be as publicized as early as it would have without E3 this year. I know, me personally, as a big Nintendo fan, I was looking forward to Metroid Prime 4 news a lot after we got news that it was scrapped essentially last year and that it was being restarted. I was really excited, and now I think that there's really no pressure at all for any of these companies to come out and make any of these announcements that I think there would have been without the E3 cancellation.
Yeah, when it comes to especially the PS5 and what is it, Xbox Series X?
Yeah, Xbox Series X.
Yeah, I honestly would not be surprised if we don't see any announcements. If we do, I wouldn't be surprised if the announcement is we're not releasing Holiday anymore when it comes to them, because it just makes sense with COVID and everything. They're not. It's harder to happen, and I honestly wouldn't blame them for them pushing the launches back a year. And I am a little bit nervous when it comes to the actual announcements being run by the bigger companies, because especially after our last conversation about Last of Us 2, there's a possibility the bigger companies are a little bit more iffy on practice and whatnot. So we're gonna have to see. I'd like to see one of the larger indie devs, like the guys who make Shovel Knight or Shantae. I'm forgetting the developers' names off the top of my head. I apologize. But I'd like to see them either band together or one of them kind of make their own kind of, this is our indie direct, and kind of release that, because there are a lot of indie games that without those conferences and without those things, like I just said, Unraveled, for me it was Sky Children of Light, and everybody will tell you how much I suck that game's dick because it is so fucking good, and it's free on iOS and Android now, and you all should play it. It's coming to Switch. But it was at E3.
You just said, never mind.
But it was at E3, and if I wasn't watching E3 when it came on, I would never know about the game, and I wouldn't care. So it's gonna be sad to see E3 go, but I do think that the indie devs, there's a chance for them to kind of rise out of this. They just need to like figure it out themselves. I don't know if relying on bigger companies to push their message is going to be the best.
Shout out to Yacht Club Games for making Shovel Knight, by the way.
Thank you, Yacht Club.
Oh,
God,
absolutely.
nice shout,
Yacht
nice
Club
shout.
did an amazing job.
Yeah, I definitely think I think there's a lot of things that kind of go into this, and like I said earlier, it has the potential to be good. It has the potential to be terrible. But yeah, there's a lot of game developers relied on E3 to get their games out. Last Guardian, Owlboy. I mean, there's tons of examples. I mean, we could list them for a few hours, but I think Keelhn's correct in that we'll see a lot of indie developers banding together to make their own platforms. But if not them, it falls to people like us who run podcasts and games news websites to kind of to get the information of games out there and make sure that people are talking about the games that might not be getting that direct coverage from the companies whose platforms they're releasing them on. But moving on to our next subject, we're very lucky to have Kyle as a guest today because he has, I think, a very interesting insight on a topic that affects quite a few of us here in the podcast, but potentially a lot of our viewers, and that's becoming a competitive player, and in Kyle's case, at such a high level. For those of you who don't know Kyle, he competed at a very high level in Pokemon, and I think I would like to hear a lot of his insights into what the process was for getting into that, what it's like playing at that level, and kind of, your opinions on what it's like to be a competitive esports player.
All right. Well, thank you for handing me the floor here, I guess. No, I think this is an incredibly interesting topic to talk about. I know a lot of people are incredibly interested in how to get into things like this. And obviously, I can only speak from a perspective of what I have currently done and what I've already done. And so a lot of my experience is going to be tied to the Pokemon scene. But speaking from at least semi-experience, this is essentially how most esports are run. I guess my story is I was playing competitive. I've been playing competitive Pokemon since I was 13. I was going to Smogon tournaments online pretty much up until I was a singles player for so long, and I started to do really well. I was laddering. I was playing well, and I was eventually able to get good enough to have some sort of name recognition. I don't know if that's how you want to say it, but to be at least relatively well known in the community. However, I did not get into what was the official esport of Pokemon, which is VGC, the Video Game Championships, which is run by the official Pokemon company. I didn't get into that until I was about 18 years old, and so I kind of got a little bit of a slow start in terms of how to get into it. In terms of when I joined Pokemon. One of the best things that I can give advice-wise is find your local tournaments, find people around you in your area that, are interested and are excited in the same hobby that you are, and get to know them and really, really kind of form that. One of the most comforting things for me for esports tournaments and participating at, high levels, traveling all across the United States. I was originally scheduled to go to Europe this year before the World Championships were canceled. Unfortunately, it was in London this year. One of the I think biggest things that helps with situations like that is definitely having friends going along with it. But the experience
Must be
itself,
nice.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah. The experience itself is quite crazy. Going from I can see where it can be a very difficult transition to feel like you're going from just playing at home, on your computer or on your Switch or on your, whatever, your Xbox, whatever game that you want to play, right? I can see how that can feel very intimidating to go from that to playing in front of this crowd that may be watching you play. I think the biggest thing that I can say and the biggest advice I can give is just to find people who are, experienced in the craft that can help you with that. I was never going to be a good player unless I started going to local tournaments. And I was never going to be I was never going to be able to make it to the world championships unless I had, people talk me through what it was like playing on stage, playing in front of all these people who, especially for a game like Pokemon, which is at the high level is essentially a strategy game. What it's like essentially having to make those decisions, have to make those, critical strategic decisions with all of this pressure on you. I think the best thing I can say is have that, try to find people who are interested in the same thing. Caleb just asked in chat if I'm allowed to talk about being signed to an esports organization. I kind of am, and I'm kind of not, just considering the situation around it. I can definitely talk about being signed to an esports organization. I just can't name the esports organization. But I can talk about being signed officially. I've been signed to multiple esports organizations, I think 3, over the course of my, what is essentially 9 years now playing professionally. But that experience is almost exactly how you would expect it to be. I maybe I'm a little bit different because I grew up a pretty big sports fan. I definitely lived in a sports household. Everybody in my family loves football and basketball and baseball and whatever, right? And so essentially it's very similar in which you will be reached out to by teams and by organizations that are interested in maybe having you represent their product. At the beginning, I'm definitely the one reaching out. I know that may not be the best look, but you got to be desperate to be successful sometimes. But once you essentially at that point, you're just when you're playing for a team, at least in my sport, I know this may be different for like FGCs or even, obviously if you're big into other esports like League of Legends or like Dota or Overwatch or whatever, right? That's much different. But for me, I'm essentially a piece. I'm a branding piece for my esports team, in which I show up to events and I'm wearing, merch. I'm wearing, I'm representing it when my name's up on the stream. It's got the name of the person before it. Essentially, that process is extremely cool, and I think getting to know some of the people that you may never have thought you would meet. Purely because of the influences that you share with the esports organizations, I think is an incredibly cool topic. But yeah, I would say one of the big things I would say for anybody looking to get into esports, and I know I've said it 6 times, but it's the most important thing, is to find people who maybe already are in the field that you're looking for and just, ask them for help. I, of course, can only give you advice on Pokemon. My advice is only going to go so far if you want to go into, competitive Smash or, competitive Overwatch or whatever, right? But I definitely could not be where I am without a lot of the people that helped me there along the way, for sure.
Mind if I hop in?
Oh, no, absolutely. Feel free. Feel free.
I don't want to toot my own horn, but this is going to sound like it. I feel like I'm the most qualified in a way to talk about competitive Smash or being like on a team for Smash for a bit. I'm just gonna run with what I'm gonna say. I feel like I like as a person
Had to
who's
be
probably,
Smash Bros.
Yeah, imagine playing Smash Bros. But like as a person who played for a bit on a team, as a person who made a team, sadly, and a person who has who plays competitive Smash Ultimate, Kyle is exactly right. It does not matter what game you go to, you are your best bet at finding success and getting a head start is finding people who have the same interests as you. I do my best to kind of talk to the PR ranked players around me, since again I'm a Smash player. I talk to the PR ranked players around me. I go to my locals and I go ask people questions. But one thing that really, like, as a new player, that most is kind of like a fatal flaw and kind of kills people's want to play the game, is not doing well in your first tournament or not dropping your ego, if that makes any sense. I will say the best thing you can do after a match or against anything in bracket is ask what you can improve on or what you did wrong or how can I improve upon this. That's a question I ask everybody I play against in bracket. If I play against them in bracket, I say, hey, like, that was a really good game. Do you know, like how did you do that? How did you cancel your thing? Like different game mechanics that you don't have full knowledge of, because there's always going to be somebody who knows a bit more about the game than you do. But as somebody who was very, very fortunate to place very well, my first tournament, I placed 14th out of like 130 people or something. And that was like at the beginning of Smash Ultimate, but I got really, really lucky to place as well as I did. But I think the main thing that most new players need to get in their head is you're never going to do amazing on your first time in tournament, because you're going to have nerves and other stuff. So usually going into a tournament with the mindset that, hey, I'm going to learn instead of like win is usually a better mindset to go into anything with. So, I mean, that's usually my 2 cents when it comes to Smash Brothers. But then again, it's completely different for any other game, like with shooters and other team-based games. But like having your name next to an org, or you repping somebody, is such a good experience. But baby steps are the best place to start, especially when you're a new player. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I agree. It's something I think we talked about in the first episode of this podcast. So if you want to hear more about it, you can go back to that episode. Is that mindset in competition is really important. And obviously I can speak to my very low ranking attitude in my competitive Smash, is that Camden's exactly right. If you approach that you are there to have fun and to learn, you're going to have a much better time than saying, okay, I have to place top of this tournament, or, I'm never going to do anything. And I think that's the wrong approach. I think saying I'm going to learn how to do it is much better. And like I think because I've had that mindset, I have improved in my playing so much. And another thing that I think that has helped me, and this is something that Kyle talked about, is finding friends and finding people who will help you grow and help you enjoy the game more. I mean, I only ever got into Smash because, my Keelhn and other people in my life were playing Smash, and they originally wanted to play with me. Now they no longer want to play with me, and I don't blame them for that. But
Don't play Smash anymore.
Yeah, Keelhn refuses to play with me, and I don't blame him anymore. Yeah, I'm a dirty plant main, and y'all are all allowed to crucify me in the comments if you want to.
I don't play Smash anymore because I beat you consistently, but then get 2-0'd and.
Yeah, Keelhn goes 0-2 in bracket. I perform a little bit better, but I can't beat him, And I think, for me, it was, as well as Keelhn, it was, the other members of my YouTube channel, the UpGamers, they also played, and, they were kind of the ones who taught me how to play well. And then I started going to tournaments because Camden invited me and Keelhn to one. And so that was, I think that was, a big impact on me. I think Camden wanted to say something real quick.
Yeah. Okay, so what you just said was actually extremely perfect. So I can add on to this real quick. Along with what you said, exactly right. Go talk, and it may be really, 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 really intimidating, because it was for me. Go talk to your PR ranked players in your state, or in your in your area. If you go to your locals and like your big locals, whatever, there's usually one really big one that's around. You'll usually meet like your PR ranked players where you are, and usually some of them are. I mean, I can't speak for all the ones I haven't talked to, but usually you're going to meet really, really nice people who want to see you improve because they care about their region. So it's so amazing to because I'll quickly plug somebody. I don't think they mind. But C Stream and Diet Soda, I talked to them before. There are PR ranked players, but if you talk to them and you ask them questions, they answer you. They're not going to be like, oh no, I have a secret strat in the game that I'm not going to talk to you about. They're going to tell you like, hey, you can improve on this. You can improve on this. Play me in a locals or something, or play me in a set real quick or whatever. It's just simple things, is going to talk to people who are better than you, who want to see you succeed, because 99% of the time they want to see you succeed. Like I love seeing seeing Kaleb and Keelhn in bracket because it's like I want to see you guys succeed. You're both my best friends. If you ever have any questions,
What about
I'm
me
really
whooping your
glad-
ass in casuals?
Fuck you, Arlo. Never. I'll never give you lessons.
Can't beat my Mac, baby.
Swear to God. But yeah, no, it's as easy as going up to just even like it doesn't matter who they are on the PR system. They are good and they are willing to help you. It's just depending on on your ability to go up and say, hey, can I play you in a game? Hey, can you look at my VOD or something? VOD being video of one of your tournaments. But it's as simple as that, and it's just it's a nice little feeling, and then you get to know the people too. You get to know the people you talk to who you may see in bracket, or you get to talk to and ask them questions. Anyway, this was going on way longer than I wanted it to. I apologize. Go ahead, Kyle. All you.
I think Keelhn still has.
Oh
still in
wait,
front
no,
of me, right?
Keelhn. Never mind. Fuck you, Keelhn. You can
What?
go ahead. Then.
Fuck you,
God?
Keelhn. You can talk.
Yeah. Fuck you, Keelhn. You can talk.
Damn, jeez.
Is it safe for me to say that I'm the only person here that plays shooters competitively?
Nope.
Yeah.
Oh, does Arlo?
Yes,
I
I
played-
play.
okay.
I play
Overwatch
a lot of
competitively.
games.
Okay.
Competitive?
So there's shooters. It's really different environment for competitive.
Oh, yeah.
Xbox team chat.
A lot
It's-
more toxic.
It is very much a
No, y'all are dead.
clutch or kick type scene.
Yeah, no.
in
no,
almost every game
will
you're a
get
part
eaten
of.
alive
And the way you see a lot of it's weird. You see people in fighter games go up and get noticed just for doing well. In shooters, it's a lot more closed off, and often the only way you can get recognized as a competitive player is by interacting with top competitive players in some way. It's playing in matches against them, playing matches with them, and getting
you
recognized.
gotta make your face known.
Yeah, you can't just get away with. You can't just get away with being good at the game.
Yeah,
just
you either have to be
Yeah.
very, very likable, or very, very good and
And-
completely unlikable.
And being likable is very, very hard, especially
oh, yeah.
in shooters.
It's either
It's
really good and an asshole, or very, very likable and still decent. And those are your only options.
through a phase where I was going to get into going to try and get into the Destiny competitive scene, which is it's not
Gross.
conducive to a strong competitive environment. The way I got people to start noticing me play was I would go into people who were streaming trials, and they'd be doing carries, and then I'd go into their lobbies and do better than them, and then leave.
Is that a plug? Is that a plug in our podcast?
That's how you flex.
Alright, I see.
And so a lot of the time is one of the best ways to get noticed is getting into games with really good people and staying with them and just trying your best to do consistently better than them. Maybe you play 6 games with them and they have the higher highs, but you're just doing good every round. That's the only way you can really get noticed, because there's no, I don't want to say there's no big events like EVO for shooters, but there really isn't.
Yeah, there's really
you're
just
right.
the game releases and when they're announced, and that's it. There's not a whole lot of hey, there's this crazy thing coming up for this game that I play, unlike in Smash or any other fighting game.
Yeah. The only one that I could say maybe kind of has an environment closer to that is Rainbow, and that is by far the most toxic shooter.
Oh, by
community.
far.
Oh,
the worst.
absolutely. 100% without a doubt.
If you want to hear what an Xbox Live chat
Like
sounds
if
like,
Call
just
of
hop
Duty
into it.
people, if Call of Duty is full of gatekeepers, Rainbow Six Siege is full of like 35-year-olds that haven't showered in 2 months, almost like Melee players.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
Crazy.
in Rainbow is the environment of where you get caught in a 1v5 because your entire team was playing bad. And then you lose the 1v5 because it's a 1v5. And then everyone in the game tells you some sort of slur and then vote kicks you immediately.
Oh yeah.
That is the Rainbow.
Bro, you didn't clutch out the 1v5? Come on, bro. You're actual ass.
You didn't clutch out the 1v5 that I died because of? Come on,
Nah,
dude.
dude. Nah, kicks now, dude. Get out of my
This is a
Xbox
true
Live.
story. The last ranked Rainbow match I played, was doing better than everyone else on my team, playing only recruit. And in the final round, I got vote kicked for playing recruit. Not even because I'd messed up, just they got tired of seeing me pick recruit.
On God.
So I got called the N-word multiple times.
They couldn't cope with the ski mask, bro.
Immediately getting kicked.
Sounds like Rambo to me.
Sounds about right.
But we love it so.
Yeah. So anyway, whoever wants to talk
Yeah.
next.
Yeah, I mean, like, I absolutely get what you're saying. Like, kind of piggybacking off your point a little bit, like, one of the hardest parts of, like, becoming, I don't want to say, like, an esports player, but one of the hardest parts of getting into any sort of community is getting recognized, and getting people to know who you are. I used to run a service where I was essentially a tutor for Pokemon, right? Where I would teach people either the basic fundamentals of the game, the advanced fundamentals, or the, how to actually get into competitive fundamentals, right? And one of the biggest things I saw, there are so many good players out there and I can only speak for Pokemon, but I'm sure this is true for every game. There are so many good players out there for so many games that don't do anything about it, essentially. They're really good, and they just keep being really good, and they expect people to start finding them. And Keelhn made a good point of, like, for shooters, obviously I don't have any sort of experience with that, but make them notice you, give them a reason to notice you. And the best way I can say to do that is go out and go if you have locals for your esport, go to locals. Or if you have, I'm lucky enough to have gone to multiple schools and colleges that have, esports clubs and esports programs that have people who play the same games that I do. Go to those events and go to those places. I would say that's maybe the biggest pitfall. And that kind of goes back to the point I was making at the beginning of this segment. What maybe the biggest pitfall is people just not doing anything about it. People saying, okay, I'm good, but I'm going to go to locals. I'm not going to talk to anybody. I'm not going to, I'm going to maybe finish, I'm going to my first local and I finished, 12th out of 24 people. Right. And I didn't talk to anybody. And I didn't get my name out there, right? And I think that's one of the big things I would recommend people not do is one of the best ways not only to learn, but to get your name out there and to get people to start, seeing you is to really make sure that people notice you rather than just kind of hope that your ability would do it for you.
100%.
And speaking of getting your name out there, I think that's a good place to wrap up the topic. I think a lot of really great points are made. I think if you want to get into competitive, listen to what everyone has said. I think a lot of really great advice has been doled out during this segment. But moving forward, I think there's an even more interesting opportunity for advice. Our last segment today is we're going to hopefully take a deep dive into what the process is for starting a YouTube channel. Obviously, everyone here is a content creator because either they're on this podcast or they have another YouTube channel or a Twitch stream. So I think starting with Kyle, because you're obviously one of our guests and my partner, alongside Keelhn and Connor on the UpGamers. But you've also had a couple of channels of your own, and you're also a Twitch streamer. So I kind of want to see what what your process is for starting a channel, and kind of what your advice is for trying to grow a channel.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's gonna be a little interesting because a lot of the advice that I'm gonna give here is actually relatively similar to some of the advice I gave for competitive, just in a different spin. So I've been a part of 5 different YouTube channels over the course of the past 7 or so years, and then I have a Twitch stream as well. Small plug, twitch.tv/SuperCameRocks. I'm streaming 5 days a week.
How dare you?
How smooth.
I know, I'm the worst.
Shameless plug, shameless plug.
Right, exactly.
Imagine plugging yourself.
Exactly. I'm the
Shameless plug is
the plug.
The biggest sin on our podcast.
No, but
Vegas,
plugging yourself. Everyone check out the UpGamers on YouTube.
yeah. Everyone check out the UpGamers.
Yeah. Do it.
Heck yeah, dude. Plug City.
That was the whole entire goal. Plug City. Plug.
No, I would say
Pog
thank you,
champ.
Mask Stop Podcast, for typing it in the chat. Really means a lot.
Pog champ.
Yes.
Pog champ. No,
Pog champ.
Pog.
I would say one of the biggest things that creators fall into with a pitfall is, and this is going to be very similar to the point I just made with competitive, is expecting their content to be the thing that gets them recognized. And I know that sounds terrible. If you're making content and you genuinely feel proud of your content, go share that content. Go to one of the biggest things that I think got me at least a lot more viewers than I had originally. I'm not going to say I'm big or anything, but at least a lot more viewers than I had originally was I would be playing a game and I would be very active on the subreddit for that game. And I would, I'd be talking into them, into there with them, and then just saying things like, hey, if you're interested, go ahead and check this out, right? I think that helps a lot. I think consistency is probably the biggest advice I can give any sort of creator out there. I know YouTube's changing right now. There's a lot of people out there that will tell you that maybe not uploading every day is better right now. No one really truly understands the algorithm. And at least without being inside of YouTube, right? Without working for YouTube. I don't know how the algorithm works. Your favorite creator doesn't know how the algorithm works. We are all just trying to do what's best. One thing I can tell you as not only a content creator myself, but as an audience member, someone who tends to enjoy a lot of Twitch and a lot of YouTube content, consistency. I'm much more likely to be interested and invested in somebody who's putting out content either daily or bi-daily or even weekly, whatever your content can sustain, right? Than someone who posts maybe once every 6 months or so. That's probably the absolute biggest piece of advice I can give is if you're really passionate and you really, really want to do something like YouTube or something like Twitch, if you really want to get into a service like that, it is very important for your entire schedule to be organized and for it to be consistent. That's probably the biggest piece of advice I can give. That and meet famous friends. I haven't done that part yet, so I'm not famous. But no, that's just a joke. I'm all finished up.
So
At
you are
least not
famous?
yet, anyway.
Correct. I can't wait until I'm best friends with Pokimane and I get
2
billion followers on Twitch.
2 billion.
Any day of the week.
78 trillion billion million.
But yeah, I'm set. That was I guess that's my point is like essentially meeting people is kind of a super important part here.
Yeah. I'll talk for a moment here.
Damn, bro, I see.
Camden, you and I can talk together.
Okay, Fat. You know
we
what?
haven't
Cute.
done
All
any of
right.
those.
3, 2, 1. I'm joking. You talk. You talk.
I think one of the a lot of people tend to say that your own brand when you're creating content, like something that is instantly recognizable as being you, is very important. And it is very much true to a certain extent. Often might find though that just because you've created something that is brand, you might need to cut back on it to get yourself out there. You might find that it's best to dedicate to the audience as it grows and then work more of what you want to have in there if you're really trying to grow. Obviously on the flip side of that, don't cut away what makes you you while you're building what you want to build.
Yeah.
And a lot of what you need to build a channel depends on the realm of channel that you're making. Obviously, like, vlogging channels are a completely different beast than likely anyone here is part of. And so to recognize what your skill set is in that kind of channel, like building. So if you want to make a channel about what kind of channel within that do you want to be? Do you want to be a Let's Play channel? Do you want to be the kind of channel that just talks about games? You want to really focus on like distant play of a certain game, like Kyle, you play a lot of Teamfight Tactics on your stream.
Teamfight
Or,
Tactics.
Way to
or,
call me out.
Or Out of the Park
Wow, bruh.
baseball, as another example. Being consistent and being good at the games, that's an important skill set for the kind of channel where you'd only be uploading specific games. Then if you're going into something like Let's Playing, if you're the kind of person that has like good reactions and good improvisation of like what to say, that would be your strong suit. Whereas if you're going into something like talking about games you're playing, people who analyze
Reviews.
or reviews and not, your strength would have to lie kind of in scripting out your videos. You have to have that creative thought process where you're getting the information you need, you're also making it enjoyable to watch. So if you are creating some kind of content, you also have to be aware of your strengths as a creator, not just strengths as a person.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
So Caleb, if you want to talk now.
Yeah, and kind of like taking that a step further, because I think that is a fantastic like point of view on what you should be doing. Like I think you laid it out absolutely fantastically. Is that like find the kind of content that you want to make and find out why, like find the thing that separates you from everyone else making that content and make that good. I think a great like piece of reference for that is someone like Alpharad, because he was just another, like he says this, he was just another YouTuber, just another Smash YouTuber, until he found the thing that made his content good and unique, and then that was what he focused on, and that's what he carried out through all of your videos. So, but the other side of that is he has passion for what he does, and I think when you combine those two things, the passion for what you're making and the knowledge of what makes you good at making that kind of content, that's what gives you that leg up over other content creators. And then going back to what Kyle said, it's then taking that passion for what you've created and spreading that and making sure other people know that you're doing it, because he's absolutely right. If you're making the best YouTube videos of all time, which I personally think that I am doing. If you don't
would
then
agree.
if you don't go then and share that with other people and try to
Download
get
follows.
your name out there, then
Your
you're
hubris.
you're just making content for the ether. But at the same time, you should be happy with your content whether no one watches it or not. The number one person to make content for, in my opinion, is yourself, because there are always going to be other people who have the same taste as you. One of my favorite things about the UpGamers as a channel is that I can sit back and watch my own videos, but I also get to watch the videos of, these people that I love working with. I love sitting back and watching, Kyle and Connor play 2K, or watching all four of us play Giraffe Town. And I love listening to myself play Danganronpa, as conceited as that might sound.
Just
It's
love
not coming.
listening to yourself in general.
I do love listening to myself, but it's not. I don't see it as coming out of a place of pride. It comes out, or a vanity rather. It's out of a sense of pride of, I'm doing something that I love and I feel like I'm doing a good job. But I think one last quick element that I think is worth talking about is the other processes that go into this, and obviously I have opinions on that as kind of the editor / uploader of this podcast, but also being a part of the editing and uploading process for the UpGamers. I think that's a thing a lot of content creators forget about when they start making content, is that there's a lot of work that goes into videos, especially depending on what style of video you're making, outside of just the simple act of creating / recording the content. And I think, even in the couple of months that I've been working on the UpGamers, I've picked up so many skills in order to try and make the editing of my videos both quicker and better that I didn't even have a concept of before I started. And I think Kyle could definitely agree with that.
Absolutely. 1,000%.
Even if you go back and watch our videos, you can see the clear progression of me picking up skills and incorporating those into the videos as we go along. I definitely think my videos that I put up this week are better than the videos that I put up 2 weeks ago, because I just know more, and because I have this drive, as do the rest of us have, to make my content always better. Does anyone have any final opinions on this topic before we wrap up? Keelhn, you do?
Oh, I was gonna say one thing, but go ahead. Oh, you?
Camden, you go first.
No. Oh, no. I feel bad. Oh, are you sure?
I've already talked, so you go first.
I will. Okay, then I'll say, as the person who kind of, hold on one second. Let me move to a different place, because I was not ready for this. So as a person who kind of thought about the idea of a podcast, I was like, yeah, let me get these losers together and make a podcast, and I will say I do the least work out of most of the people who are in this podcast. I appreciate each and every one of you. Yes, I'm outside. I'm sorry. I apologize. Real fast. Look, the dedication I put in to be here, okay?
The Nature ASMR episode of the podcast.
Shh, quiet. Let me finish my final point. Shut up, Cricket. God damn. Anyway, this has made me pick up on his social skills as well, because it makes you talk. You have to talk and shit. I understand it's a nature ASMR. You know what? Never mind. All I wanted to say was that this is a lot of fun, and honestly, you should just go for it. It doesn't matter what content you make, just go for it. Now, Crickets, you can shut the fuck up now.
So what I was going to say was that
Hope you all
what
enjoyed the
important
Crickets.
thing to note is that on top of having a strong base for your content, you should always have some kind of drive to keep your content fresh in some way. I think a great example be someone basically homeless, because if you only upload rainbow videos, content is going to get stale eventually. If all you're doing is playing the same game and making the same kinds of jokes. Formula is there. If formula is the only thing you use and that's the only thing you stick to, eventually it'll be stale. And so you see him try very hard to innovate on his own process. So you see him do a lot of really stupid things just trying to keep Rainbow fresh. Example would be at one point he played like 8 different PCs at once, the same keyboard and mouse. And that drive to keep your own content fresh, not just for your viewers, but maybe for yourself. I know if all I ever did was upload, like I play a lot of Destiny, so for example, if I uploaded Destiny content, like 2 months, I would probably want to kill myself uploading Destiny content. Because no matter how much you love something, eventually you will burn yourself out of it if you don't try to keep it fresh for yourself. And so having that strong base is, like I said, very important, but then you have to be willing to build upon that and grow. You can't just be like, hey, I found what works for me. This is all I'm ever going to do. Because in the end, that will be your detriment.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's a fantastic point. Kind of because as much as you like do content creation for other people, and obviously you want an audience and you want views and you want to please the algorithm, at the end of the day, you're also putting a lot of yourself into the content you create. And I definitely agree. Like, my favorite game of all time is Persona 5 Royal, and I just beat that game. But if that was the only thing that I ever made content for, I would hate that game within, like you said, 2 months, maybe not even. Or even something like Smash, which is a bit more like there's an element of freshness just because you're going against different people. Even then, I would be so tired of it within, probably 2 weeks of if though I made a video every day of just that, I would hate the game within a very short time. But you know what I don't hate? I don't hate doing this podcast every week. It's been an absolutely fantastic experience. I do want to give a quick thank you to Camden for bringing all of us together and making this podcast possible.
Orchestrating this group of
Oh, thanks, guys.
Thank you for the nature ASMR. We appreciate it.
Dude, I'm telling you. Okay, I'll bring it next week. I promise. On God, I'll record outside.
No, please.
I need an
Please
hour-long
don't.
video on this channel that's just nature ASMR.
No, that ain't it. There's a lot of stuff that's it. That ain't.
And one thing that I love even more than doing this podcast is everyone who listens to this podcast. Thank you so much to everyone who's listened, whether you've listened to the whole thing or you've just stopped in and listened to something. And thank you so much to all of you who left comments, especially Connor once again saying Indy's nuts a while ago. That was a very insightful comment.
That was the wisest thing I've ever heard since I heard
wise, yeah.
Uncle Iro from Avatar
Thank
Last
you to
Airbender.
me for being unbelievably insightful for no apparent reason.
My man's went in philosophy class.
And a big thank you to Keelhn and Kyle for joining us this week.
We got to get the big thank to them.
Oh yeah, no, thank you
Yeah,
guys.
thank you guys.
This is the best podcast I've been on, so thank you very, very much.
No, thank you so
Is
much.
this the only podcast you've been on?
I refuse to answer that question.
Oh, great. Thanks for that.
So, if you do become friends with Pokimane, though, like, can you
Oh,
like?
do I need to shout
like,
out the Masks Off podcast as
meeting?
soon as I become friends with Pokimane?
No, what I'm saying is, can you
yes.
arrange a meeting between me and Pokimane? Like, could you orchestrate that if y'all become friends? Like, hypothetically.
Yeah, I'll see what I can do. I don't know.
Thank you.
All right, well,
Alex is 18. It's cool.
all simpery aside,
We safe.
Kyle, where can people find you on the internet?
People can find me in a lot of places. You can find me on my personal YouTube channel, youtube.com/superkmanrocks. You can
Did we lose him?
also, I'd like to say, which is youtube.com/theupgamers, which is that co-op YouTube channel with me, Caleb, Keelhn, and Connor. You can also find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/superkmanrocks. I've been streaming 5 days a week. I was doing 7 for a little while there, but I got a little, that was a little much. I think 7 was a little much. So yeah. I'm streaming 5 days a week. Come by. I play a lot of stuff. I've been playing a lot of baseball, which is weird, I know. But I've also been playing a lot of team fight tactics. So if you're interested in any of that stuff, come on down.
Team fight tactics.
And Keelhn,
next week I raged for a hot hour about
anyone else?
Legends of Runeterra.
I just not hear anybody anymore.
Oh, there was no way it was ever going to be balanced.
Kyle, can you not hear us?
All right, I can't hear anybody. Oh well.
Appreciate it. It's beautiful.
Well, it's an amazing problem to have at the very end of the podcast.
Out myself.
Well, since Keelhn doesn't have anywhere on the internet you can find him besides the UpGamers, Keelhn, go ahead and describe what your favorite part of the UpGamers is.
My favorite part of the UpGamers is my Instagram handle at KSG4211.
I think mine is definitely
everyone. I upload music occasionally. I'm not very consistent about that because I would not want to make music anymore if I wrote every day. Yeah, on there. You can find me on the UpGamers channel, which has been mentioned numerous times.
Has it though? How about you do it one more time?
My favorite.
Can we get one more dog channel?
My favorite part of the UpGamers channel so far, been voicing Tunnels the Time Traveling Clown to Raft Town.
Oh
Every
my god!
Episode, I destroy my vocal cords.
The worst experience anyone could have for their ears. You guys won't. No, you guys as the fans don't have to struggle with it. We as the recorders, he right next to us. I mean, oh god, oh god, oh god.
I launch into that voice. I don't just go into it screaming. I'm in there.
Bro, he out here.
He do be out here.
He been out here.
At the end of each episode of that. So, give support to the UpGamers, but also support Tunnels the Time Traveling Clown.
We love him.
He deserves it.
He does.
Really do.
He really do.
Well,
all right.
As always, any of the other places online for the core members of the podcast can be found in the description, as well as every single one of those locations that Keelhn and Kyle just gave so kindly to us. All of those can be found in the description of this video. We will be back next week, hopefully on Sunday at 8 o'clock. Hopefully you will join us back for that. We do love having people watch this podcast. I can't think of anything else that we need to talk about. So before we end the stream, everyone go ahead and say goodbye to the audience.
Probably next week.
Thank you, Dallin.
I don't know, something like that.
All right. Goodbye, everyone.
Tough talk for a small cock.
All right. Well, this was the UpGamers podcast featuring the Masks Off podcast. This is the Masks Off podcast. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you, guys.